The movie I chose to analyze for this film is Dope, and I'm going to be evaluating the editing, the cinematography, and the screenplay. And it's all an art form, and you have to add all of those together. You have to have all those key aspects to create such a good film. And let's start off with the editing. And editing, according to our textbook, flashbacks, is joining one shot to another. And that's just the dictionary definition of editing. But as we learned from Edge Codes, it's more of like an art, and it takes a lot of thought and it takes a lot of time, work put into it to create an interesting film. And an example of editing in this film is the beginning. It starts off with kind of like films glued together, and in the background just being narrated by someone, and you don't know who this someone is. And they picked a bunch of good scenes to create a good start to the movie. And in the beginning, the editors combined the shots chronologically, and it was kind of calm in the beginning. I think that was just to create chaos after, because if it starts off slow, then you kind of just like, you're cool, and then all of a sudden it's just hype. And another example of editing in this film was adding two shots together on one screen, which was interesting. Like when they're playing music at Lily's house and creating like the band, you see instruments on one side of the screen, and then you see the humans on the other side of the screen. And I thought that was just an interesting, cool thing that I haven't really seen in film. Another example is flashbacks, which are kind of reoccurring theme to this editing in the movie. And an example of a flashback in the movie was when Malcolm is waiting to have sex with Lily, and he's sitting out there just thinking, and all of a sudden he thinks of when Lily was asking, "What's in the backpack? Are you taking it to my dad?" And then he thinks, he obviously knows she's not naive, and she knows what's in the bag, and she's a very interesting girl, as you see. And it flashes back in to him, and he just runs to the bathroom and creates like an adrenaline rush when she's doing the drugs that he's about to get killed for. And another example of editing is when Malcolm goes to his interview and he finds out Jacoby is actually a drug dealer, and he's kind of just like confused in his thoughts. So you as an audience, you're kind of just like at a shock factor type deal. And it slowly fades into him getting on the bus to see his mom, and it's just like it creates like a kind of sad, disappointed feel, which is interesting and a good edit there. And now we're on to the screenplay. And the screenplay, as we learned from the movie Tales from a Script, it is the backbone of a movie, and it takes a lot of hard work, and it is just writing words on the paper, but a movie wouldn't be a movie if you did not have screenplay. So the screenplay, it's basically like creating all the characters. Like you have Malcolm, you have the drug dealer, you have all of his friends, everybody, and you get to kind of like, the screenplay just creates those characters, which all the other aspects of the movie add on to. So the screenplay is kind of just like a backbone of the film, and it was a really good screenplay, and I did enjoy the story. But there's a lot of other things that you have to add to the screenplay to create a good movie, and this movie was wonderful. And after that, we have the cinematography, which I find one of the most interesting aspects of a film, just because there's a lot you can do wrong, and there's a lot you can do right. And I think in the movie Dope, there's a lot they did right, because there's things that they could have left out and could have kept just kind of plain and simple, and the movie would not have been as good as it was. For example, the end was one of my favorite parts, just because Malcolm's waiting, he's looking at his Harvard letter, and you don't know if he's going to get in or not, and the movie just ends with him opening it, and you don't get to see the letter, it's just him opening it, and then he looks up at the screen, and it just ends. And the cinematographer could have ended it just by showing that he got accepted or got declined, and then you would have just been like, oh, that's great. But they ended it kind of, you just don't really know if he got in, but you can tell by his emotion that he got in, which was kind of cool, just because it makes the movie, like, makes you as the audience feel just like you see his body language and emotion. You don't just see, like, hear words, which was cool. And also the cinematography, the party scene when they're at the club for the drug dealer's birthday party. It was interesting just because the way the cameras were moving and stuff, you just felt like you were out. Like the cameras were very like jumpy and like movie, and so it kind of like felt like you were drunk and you were partying out with them. And then when when the party gets busted by the drug dealer or the DEA, it's just very chaotic, and like the lighting all of a sudden gets brighter and like less colorful, and it's more like you just feel stressed out, and like you feel bad for Malcolm just because him and his friends didn't like they wanted to go to the party but they really didn't, and you kind of just the cinematography creates like a chaotic like freaky feel. You just don't know what's going to happen next. And the cinematography for this movie most of the time just kept you on your toes, and it was very interesting. Yeah. So that is Dope. It was one of my favorite movies, and I'm glad I got to watch it. And the editors, the cinematographers, and the screenplay writers did a wonderful job of creating this movie, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.